Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a sledgehammer to a myth that pretty much all of us have just accepted since our very first job. You know the one, the idea that more hustle automatically equals more income. We've all been sold this story that unless you're grinding 24/7 and running purely on iced coffee and sheer willpower, well, you're just not trying hard enough. But today, we're going to unpack a really fascinating framework from a brilliant piece by Salima, and it proves this old narrative is completely backward. We're going to look at how to entirely redesign your model of working, earning, and honestly living. So, right off the bat, I want to ask you something that probably feels incredibly counterintuitive. What if serving fewer people was actually the secret to making more money? I mean, that flies in the face of literally everything we're taught about scaling a business or climbing the career ladder, right? But stick with me here. We're going to use a real-world anomaly in the professional space as our ultimate proof of concept. We'll explore a specific group of professionals who quietly prove the whole hustle culture thing completely wrong. And in the process, they built a blueprint that absolutely any of us can borrow. To really get this, picture a traditional doctor for a second. We all know the scene: super long days, overflowing waiting rooms, and maybe, 7 totally rushed minutes per patient? That doctor is exhausted, underappreciated, and honestly, despite years of sacrifice, they often feel financially stuck because of huge overhead costs. Okay, now, contrast that with a totally new model. Picture a doctor who sees the same number of patients in a month that the first doctor sees in a single week. Her clients have her direct cell number, she actually knows their stress levels, she is well rested, she loves her work, and get this, she actually earns more. Same exact profession, entirely different reality. The only difference? How they chose to think about their value. Let's put some hard numbers to this so you can really feel the contrast here. 2,500. To put that into perspective, that's enough people to fill a small concert venue. And that massive number is the amount of patients a traditional doctor typically manages in their panel. Can you even imagine carrying the mental load for 2,500 people? The traditional medical model is entirely built on volume. It forces professionals to see as many patients as humanly possible, build insurance, and just endlessly repeat the cycle. It's an exhausting, incredibly impersonal treadmill. And the ironic part? Once you factor in the massive administrative overhead needed to manage that sheer volume of humanity, it isn't even that lucrative. It's a system literally designed for burnout. Now, flip the script. 400. That is the number of patients a concierge doctor typically serves. Concierge medicine completely flipped the traditional model on its head. Instead of chasing volume, these doctors charge an annual membership fee, which can be anywhere from $1,000 to over $10,000 a year. And in return, the clients get actual, unhurried, dedicated attention. That is 6 times fewer clients, yet the doctor makes the exact same or even a greater income. When you run that math, it completely shatters the old narrative. They didn't hustle more, they just changed the story about what their time and their care were actually worth. Now, let me let you in on a little secret. This whole explainer, it was never actually about doctors. That was just a Trojan horse. This is entirely about you. It's about the story most of us were handed before we were even old enough to question it. You know, the story that says, work more to earn more, serve everyone if you want to be successful, and definitely keep your prices low so you stay competitive. Well, that story is a lie. Or, at the very least, it's just one optional story among many. The concierge doctor is really just a mirror, reflecting a profound lesson back on your own self-worth and how you package your own skills. Okay, so let's break down the first big takeaway here. Lesson 1, fewer is not less. We naturally tend to equate serving fewer people with a lack of ambition or maybe taking a step backward in our careers, but serving fewer people at a much higher level is a highly calibrated strategy. Think about it. The most premium experiences in the world, from exclusive private members clubs to custom bespoke fashion to this exact concierge medical model, they are all fundamentally built on depth, not mass appeal. When you strip away the sheer volume of clients, you suddenly create the actual space needed to deliver truly transformational value. Which brings us to the second lesson, and this one is a real game changer. Charge for access, not just output. In the old model, we bill for a specific deliverable, right? A 15-minute appointment, a single logo design, a 1-hour consultation. But concierge doctors charge a premium retainer simply for being available. They are getting paid for the peace of mind they provide, the deep relationships they nurture, and the friction they completely remove from their clients' lives. So you really have to ask yourself, what would it look like in your own career to be paid for your focused presence rather than constantly tallying up your daily deliverables? And that naturally leads into lesson 3, which I find incredibly empowering. The model is a choice.
These concierge doctors didn't invent some new medical skill. They didn't go back to school to learn a totally new specialty. They simply looked at an existing system that was burning them out and totally underserving their clients, and they said, you know what? I am redesigning this. It's so easy to mistake that kind of pivot for arrogance, but really, it's just pure clarity. If the system you're operating in right now is exhausting you, you have the agency to change the container in which you deliver your expertise.
But, of course, here is where we usually hit a massive wall. I call it the mindset trap. The second I mentioned a concierge doctor charging up to $10,000 a year, your brain likely went straight to the price tag. I bet your internal calculator just switched right on. You probably thought, oh, I could never afford that. Or, well, that's not for people like me. And just like that, before you even finished processing the sheer brilliance of the business model itself, your mind closed the door. You filed the idea away as impossible. That immediate instinct to calculate what is out of reach, that is the exact ceiling keeping you stuck. It really boils down to the types of questions we ask ourselves in that internal dialogue. There are basically two kinds. Questions that close doors, like, how much does it cost? Instantly turn you into a spectator. You become a passive consumer, just deciding if you can afford someone else's reality. But questions that open doors, like, how could I make this work from where I am, put you right on the inside. You become the architect of your own reality. The difference between feeling totally stuck and finding absolute freedom isn't your intelligence and it isn't your resources. It's simply the habit of which question you reach for first. Stripped of the whole medical context and that scary price tag, this is simply a story about a professional who realized their system was broken and just decided to fix it. So, what would it look like if you applied that exact same logic to what you already do? I'm actually going to pause for just a second here. I really want you to let that sink in. Because look, this isn't just for medicine. This framework spreads like wildfire across absolutely any industry. A nurse can become a private health advisor with just a few premium clients. A therapist can move away from those exhausting hourly sessions to a retainer-based relationship. A nutritionist could offer bespoke wellness partnerships instead of just one-off meal plans. A lawyer can offer proactive, ongoing counsel. A coach can create a really deep container for way fewer clients. Or a virtual assistant. They could easily elevate into a fractional chief operating officer role. Every single one of these professionals can start thinking this way today, before they spend a single dime on startup costs. The redesign of your career starts in your mind, way, way before it ever shows up in your bank account. So let's walk through a few questions right now to get that process started for you. First up, what do you already know how to do that genuinely changes people's lives? Try to forget your current job title for a minute. Think about your actual real-world impact. What is the deep transformation you provide? Who out there would gladly pay a premium for consistent, personalized, dedicated access to that specific transformation? Next, I want you to visualize this dramatic shift in volume. What would it look like to serve 5 people exceptionally well instead of 50 people just adequately? Imagine the massive shift in your daily energy. Imagine actually having real breathing room in your schedule, waking up and knowing exactly who you're helping today, knowing their intricate details, their specific challenges, and having the actual time to go way above and beyond for them. By trading mass volume for elite presence, you aren't just improving your own life, you are drastically improving the quality of the result you deliver to those 5 people. All right, now it's time for a bit of a hard look in the mirror. What are you currently giving away for free or totally undercharging for, simply because you don't believe it's worth more? Where in your life are you still operating on the old model, giving more and more of your time and energy just to try and scrape a little more back? Where are you shrinking your true value just to make sure you stay completely accessible to absolutely everyone? You were likely made for the few, but you're pricing and burning yourself out for the masses. I want to wrap up with this absolute mic drop thought from Salima. This ceiling isn't real, it's just the model you haven't questioned yet. You don't necessarily need brand new skills or another fancy degree or a bunch of external resources. You just need a completely different relationship with the incredible skills you already possess. People all around us are quietly redesigning what a career looks like, proving every day that presence is vastly more valuable than volume. They gave themselves permission to change the model. So, what is your new model going to look like?